It's not a normal world, it's Taskmaster world, and welcome back to the Taskmaster podcast. As I said previously, the podcast is now, whenever I get a guest, we do an episode. Obviously, we have microphones still not working. Thank you very much, Apple. That is sarcastic if no one knew that. And today I'm here with a very special guest. He's best known for being on Series 1 of Taskmaster New Zealand. It's the one, it's the only, unless there's multiple, which I highly doubt it, Leigh Hart!
What up? Hey, how are you?
I'm all right.
Great to be here.
You're welcome. Now, let's delve straight into it. What was it like to be on the very first series of Taskmaster New Zealand?
That's a good question. In retrospect, it was great, a great experience. But initially, when I was asked to go on it, I was very skeptical. New Zealand has a really bad track record of taking overseas formats, or at least in the eyes of the very discerning viewers in New Zealand. They're very critical, they're very judgmental of their own talent, etc. And I'd seen the UK version and was a fan, and I was going, oh no, look, I'd prefer to be on the second series because then I can see if it's going to work or not. But I took a risk and went on the first one, and I was pleased I did, because it was a great experience. And the show, I mean, I'm a big critic myself, that the show worked out a lot better than I even imagined.
Yeah, it is amazing, and it's got so much fans, not just in New Zealand. And with, I think it's like the other week, they announced that there's a Taskmaster streaming service where all Taskmaster will be available. What's your thoughts on Taskmaster Supermax Plus?
That's great. I hope I get paid for that. I'm not sure. Yeah, no, I think it's great. It's a great format, and to see other countries do it. I watch the show now, having been on it, with a totally different view. In many ways, it's a show that works on two levels. When I first started watching, I'd think this would be great if you were doing all this stuff, but is it really that entertaining for the viewers? I was in sort of two minds, but now I see that it certainly is, and it's a real cult, a cult show now, and it's great to be a part of that.
Yeah, and with the way Taskmaster works, there's like so many Tasks films, and you have ones that are broadcast. Which is your favourite task that you've done that never made it to air?
Well, that's a good question. I think most of my favourite ones made it to air, to be honest. If I could turn that question on its head, my least favorite one made it to air as well, and that was that's probably because it is a bit of a blur. You film all these tasks over weeks, and then you obviously go on the live show and talk about them retrospectively, and they're often done in a different order. So in a way, you're watching them like a viewer and going, was that me? Did I do that? But there was one particular task, which was, I'm not sure which episode it was in, make this woman proud as your mother or something. And it was very cryptic, and I couldn't get my head around it. I ended up doing a yoga session with her, and I didn't like the way I looked in it. I was very self-conscious, and it just felt wrong. My favorite ones, though, to answer your first question, was the more physical ones.
Yeah.
And I don't mean sort of strength-wise, but sort of things that involved kinetic energy, or throwing something, or something breaking, or something like that, as opposed to the mental ones.
Yeah, and with every version of Taskmaster, you always have the obligatory costume. How did you come up with your series outfit?
Yeah, look, mine was pure practicality. What am I going to wear week in, week out? Sometimes it's going to get messy. Sometimes I'm going to be jumping, running, sometimes doing nothing. So I just chose something that fitted me at the time and was practical. And then I got on the first episode, of course, and saw everybody else had made a real effort. with their sort of stuff, adding humor to it. And I suddenly thought, oh, maybe I'm not taking this seriously enough. But I think what I wore was, it did the job. It did the job.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier that you were a fan of the original. Now, what is your favourite series of the original?
Oh no, that'd be hard to say what my favorite series was, because the way we get it over here is in sort of piecemeal, and I'll just be watching randomly over weeks, and there'd be different people on, of course, all the time, and a lot of them are, comedians I'm very familiar with. So they're big shoes to fill, and like the New Zealand public, I was thinking, can we do this? Is it the personalities, I would be asking, that are making this work?
Yeah.
Or is it the format, or is it the tasks? And obviously it's a combination. Um, no, I've always liked British TV shows, comedy shows, way back to Shooting Stars and all shows like that. And obviously Would I Lie to You, and all these sort of shows I really enjoy, but it mainly is because of the incredible talent that's on them.
Mm. Yeah, and it's interesting from a fan point of view who grew up with the original, like me. We a lot of the fans were all really a little bit concerned, because after the flop of the American version, we were concerned that it wasn't gonna work. We didn't know it was gonna work, but that from watching it, it made me obsessed with New Zealand. I said this to Paul when I interviewed him, but I was obsessed with New Zealand the whole time the show was airing. I would just watch every New Zealand program that was possible. I was
Did you change your mind?
And so, who do you, now that series 2 has been and gone, who do you reckon will be in series 3? Who do you want to see in the third series?
Well, in New Zealand, we're sort of running out of talent. So hopefully I might get recycled back in to series 3. Who knows? Look, I don't know. I'd like to see Jeremy, the host, have to go and do some of the tasks. That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
A bit of a flip. Look, who would there be? There's Jason Hoyt, who I used to do a lot of radio and TV with. It'd be interesting to see him. He'd be out of his depth and physically in a lot of ways. Mike Minogue would be great. I think regardless, what I found as much as anything with the personalities, it's the combination of personalities which is just as important. How they sort of play off each other. I was paired up with Angela Dravid, of course, who ended up winning my series, and I wasn't that familiar with her, and we knew each other, but that was a real mismatch.
Yeah.
But it worked, and we had a great time sort of doing that. So as long as I get the combinations right, yeah. And I assume there will be a series 3. You might know more than me about that.
Well, we're hoping, because every time I see press releases when they're announcing what's coming back, Taskmaster never gets mentioned within that list. Patriot Brains, which is another phenomenal show, has been renewed for a second series, but then
which one's that?
Patriot Brains. It's one that Bill Bailey does. Which is a nice surprise, seeing Bill Bailey out of his natural habitat. But when you do the show, when you're in the studio, do you actually win the prizes and get to take them home, or do you get the opportunity to give it back to them?
You do get to win them and take them home, but ironically, you normally leave them behind anyway, because you don't really want to take them home. There's one week I bought an electric guitar in, and I didn't win that week. So luckily the person did give it back to me, but if they wanted to, technically I think they could have taken it.
Wow.
They could have taken it home.
Wow.
And most of the stuff I was offering up, I was hoping people would take away.
Yeah. There's a good one in this episode we're going to move on to now. Now we shall move on to Taskmaster New Zealand Series 1, Episode 5. So the prize task for the episode was to bring in the most beloved family heirloom, and that was the one where you brought in those fake books. What was your inspiration to bring those in?
Well, I grew up I assumed with quite a literary family. We had always had a big library. There was always someone in there drinking normally. But it was only when I was about 21 that I went over to the top few shelves and reached up and pulled down a few volumes that I realized they were actually just facades of books, the sort of foam backing and just a facade. And that was the time I really started thinking twice about my family, where I came from, who they were, and perhaps we weren't as intelligent, as learned as we previously thought. So it had a big impact on my life. That in two ways. Up to that point, thinking we were very intelligent and well read. Then after that, realizing that we were absolute frauds. So that's what I thought summed up an heirloom for my family.
Yeah, I genuinely thought that was a brilliant one to bring in because they look so good from the front, and then when you realize you flip them, it was like wow. It's like how it was like
Well, it's a great metaphor for life, isn't it? It's a great metaphor for life, and it can look so good from the front, but behind, not so good. And when you have kids, I've got a couple of kids. For the first 12, 13 years, they think you're pretty cool, and that you pull it off. After that, they see through you, and all you really are a fake book with a fake cover, with nothing really going on behind.
Yeah, and then Guy Williams brought in a horse photo montage. Brindley Sim brought in cake forks in a box. I didn't expect you can get cake forks in a box. I just thought they come in a drawer. I believe
Yeah.
drawers.
Yeah, there was some really weird thinking with the prizes. I struggled with the prizes because each week you'd be told what to do, and you have to take your brain to a different place. You're trying to entertain us, of course, but it's a different style of thinking than the tasks themselves, I think.
Yeah, and it would seem really hard because when you have to think really hard, and it's like one of the ones in if I think it's a future episode where they have to bring in something that Jeremy Wells wouldn't like, and that's the one where Brinleyton brought in Greg's video, which is a genius thinking, but then it's hard to think because if you don't know Jeremy personally, you don't necessarily know what he's not going to like. What was your process when you were thinking about that prize task?
Yeah, I can't recall what I brought in for that one. That was one of the early episodes. I can't remember what I brought in. And actually, funny enough, a lot of my things that I brought in were kind of interchangeable for a lot of the shows. They're just sort of stupid things, really. And you could decide what show to bring them on. But yeah, that part I found a bit of a challenge, actually.
Yeah, and that seems harder because when you're trying to like think of what you're doing for this task in the moment, you run a time limit, and you have to do it really quickly. But with a prize task, you have until the day of recording that episode, so you've got a lot longer to think about it, and you have to think.
But you do and you don't, because you can start overthinking it.
Yeah.
And you start thinking too much. The rest of the show is all spontaneity and what you do in 30 seconds. But you can start overthinking it and going, I've got to do something really funny here, and then you forget about it. And especially in my case, I would end up going down to the wire anyway with most of those things. Normally on the day, normally something that was sitting in my car a lot of the time on the way up there.
Yeah, and then we go down to task number 1. And what's good about the New Zealand version is that it's all original. Every single task from episode 1 of series 1 to episode 10 of series 2, there's no recycled tasks, which is brilliant. And this is another good one, which was blow the egg the furthest. You have 5 minutes, or until the egg breaks. Now that one, what was your thought process of that? Because Paul Williams told me that they've named the leaf blower after you.
Well, I used the leaf blower a lot in that series, and often not very well. So when this task came up, I suddenly thought, for once, I can really, really kick ass with the leaf blower. And that's one task I was sure I was going to take out because, no disrespect to the other contestants, I'd like to think I've got quite a sort of, I'm not a great practical brain as far as executing, but for ideas and stuff, I've always been into space and, gravity and et cetera, physics. And I was pretty sure using the leaf blower and a small channel, I could get that egg shooting off the table, a good 10 meters.
Yeah.
But purely my execution as I was setting up, as you would have seen, this is them, they're so strict. The egg dropped off the end before I had a chance to really, launch. It's a bit like one of those early NASA. There are those rockets that blow up on the pad, and they look great when they go up, but if they blow up on the pad, it's not so impressive. And that's what happened. And that's probably the task I was most disappointed with, because I was pretty sure I could take that one out, but it wasn't to be. I think I came last.
Yeah, and you have, I've never actually seen it happen where you've asked if you can get another of the items, and Paul let you have another egg just to demonstrate what you would have done, and what you would have done if you had done it straight away, that would have been a much better attempt than what came out. You got 0 centimeters, which is yeah.
Well, asking for another egg, that was an example of how frustrating. I mean, I make a lot of TV myself, I suppose. So I was thinking, who knows in editing what they're going to do? They may use my most impressive one because they need to or something. I don't know. So it was worth having a go. But no, true to their form of being loyal to the format, what happened first happened first. So you can't change it.
Yeah, and then when I was watching this, I was thinking, what would I have done? And realistically, because you're not allowed to just pick up the egg and run off, you had to sort of like, it would be hard to do. You would, I mean, you wouldn't do it. You would sort of do it a Guy Williams really and just blow it off the table. But you would try and put some padding. I would say you would put padding on the floor first. So that if it landed in safety first.
Yeah, on a mattress or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one good thing about the show, though. You're right, because when I watch the show now, even more so than before I went on it, I think that's one of the strengths or the unique things of the show. That the viewer is constantly sitting there going, "What would I do?" And everybody's brains works in a different way. And some people obviously they're going for comedy away, but you are thinking, what would I do during their task? How would I do it differently?
Yeah. And not only did you use a leaf blower, Madeline Sami also used a leaf blower and also broke the egg very quickly. And as we mentioned earlier, Guy Williams had the worst attempt because he just blew the egg off, and he must have known, he must have done that for comical effect of blowing it off, watching it break.
You never know. He's not that practical.
Yeah.
But the leaf blower was a popular item for sure. I wish I used it more now.
Yeah. And then Brindley had the clever idea was to put it onto the task, and then she still broke it. It still didn't go as well. But with the task, were the tasks made out of cardboard or paper? Because they look more flimsier than the one on the original version, on the UK original.
Were the tasks?
The task cards, were they made out of paper or card? Do you know?
Card.
Ooh.
I think.
It looked a lot lighter, and I'm thinking they look.
It might have been a lighter grade card, I think. Or perhaps it was paper. I mean, there's an envelope, and then you open it up, and it may have been. I can't recall, to be honest. I'm sure there's a lot of budget. Probably was paper.
There probably was, because the show's like so massive and there's so much go on. I reckon they've put a lot of money into the tasks themselves, and they've ran out of money when they've come to actually design the task cards, and they've had to.
It wouldn't surprise me.
They had to cut down the tree that they used earlier. So now we move on to task number 2. Be as unhealthy as possible, and you have 10 minutes until you shout, "Let's get the party started." Now, obviously you made the worst error possible of shouting, "Let's get the party started" early. What went through your head when you read that bit in the task?
About let's get the party started.
Yeah. 'Cause you didn't
Well, yeah,
work it
look,
out.
immediately when I read the task about as being as unhealthy as possible, um, my mind immediately went to the kitchen. You associate the kitchen with unhealthiness, I thought it had to happen in the kitchen. So get the most unhealthy things I can in the kitchen, combine them in a sports smoothie, and consume it, and just do it. And I think there was bourbon in there. There was nacho chips. There was all sorts of stuff. It was a fairly gross episode for me when I look back on it. People looking at that would go, "Who is this guy consuming all this horrible stuff?" But I've got a bit of a track record here on TV with kitchens. I do a show called Moon TV, which featured a segment called Speed Cooking, which was making a 3-course meal in under 2 minutes in a kitchen. So my mind was going back to that really. Let's get some ingredients in there and really mix it up.
And
I think I did it right in the task. I think.
yeah, did it taste nice? Because it doesn't look nice.
No, it did not taste nice. But for the sake of the camera, I mean, like in a normal show, you'd be able to swap that out for a banana smoothie, which you could pretend was the same one. But no, not in this show. You had to do it for real.
Yeah.
I've been sticking to the format strictly, so I had to consume that. So I left the show that day feeling a little bit, worse for wear.
Yeah, it's as I like to say, you put up with all the suffering for the entertainment value for the audience rather than yourself, just to let the audience just laugh at you. And with this series and with it being now popular, do you get more recognised now than you did before you were on it?
Not for Taskmaster, so to speak. Perhaps overseas, if it's formatted over there, but not in New Zealand because, how do I explain it? I get comments about Taskmaster, but I think I was fairly well known here for quite a few years for a lot of different things, in a lot of different areas. So, but it was great. It was another string to the bow, I suppose.
Yeah.
And I think people appreciated it, but I don't think I got new fans out of Taskmaster, so to speak.
And then with the others, like let's say a majority of them used the classic cliche of smoking, which is funny because when Brindley had never smoked in her life, and you just hear a gentle cough, you can tell that she had gone down a slippery slope with that. And what were your thoughts when you saw all these people using cigarettes as their method?
I tell you what, it did gross me out. I did start thinking that is pretty unhealthy. I don't smoke, and I cough if I ever have a cigarette. So to get that many in your mouth,
And earlier you mentioned how you were incredibly partnered up with Angela Dravid. What was your thoughts when you saw that she had done the most unhealthy thing possible and put her own funeral on?
I thought that was very clever. I'm not sure how she did that. What Angela always did quite well, which I cottoned on to probably a little late in the show, was to use Paul quite a lot. As you forget that Paul is there as an extra, as someone you can use. And I think he was the priest conducting the service. So visually, it was always good. I think in another episode, she gave birth to Paul. So she played that card quite well. Whereas I think I was probably a little bit, what's the word for it? Operating on my own a little bit too much. Yeah, but no, I think it was great how she thought out of the square like that. And it's probably how she won the series in the end.
Yeah. And she is she's another popular one as well because she also appeared in series 2 as a small cameo.
Oh, did she? Oh, as the winner from series 1.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
And if Series 3 does get commissioned, I reckon you can do what Al Murray loves to do, and just trying to appear in the show as much as possible. Even though you're not a contestant, you can just worm your way in. Because Al Murray has been in he's been in like his series and then been in other episodes that he's not even a part of, just because he's either been asked to help out or he's just been walking past.
Yeah. I'll certainly mention that to the production company now. I'll say, why don't we do that thing that like Al Murray does, and I can pop in. That'd be a good idea, actually. Yeah,
because
I think I'd be perfect role for that. We look similar.
Yeah, because during Series 12's airing in the UK, we had an ad campaign for Google Translate, where Desiree Birch and then Al Murray were both doing tasks that use the Google phone, and that was even funnier because it was during the adverts. So while the show's going on, you're watching Al Murray, who hasn't appeared in the show for like 3 series, has then just popped up out of nowhere using Google Translate to work out what these 3 people are trying to say.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a good way of doing it, all right? Yeah.
It is. And then we move on to task number 3, which is do the most impressive thing hands-free. And you ended up dressing up as Hannibal Lecter and then drinking milk. Why did that come into your mind straight away? Why were you thinking, oh, Hannibal Lecter?
Well, hands-free, as soon as I thought of hands-free, I thought of straitjacket. So then I thought, what could I possibly do in a straitjacket? Which would, my hands are certainly free. So immediately I thought of Hannibal Lecter and when he had his arms tied up. And then I thought, what could I do? Drinking a thing of milk would probably be the easiest thing. And it turned out it wasn't. It was actually harder than I thought, but impressive nevertheless, quite filmic. I knew Jeremy was into films and things, so I thought that would impress him, for points. Yeah. So that's where I was thinking, Yeah. Actually, you can't. If this is one of those series where if you went back the next day and did the same task, you'd probably come up with something totally different. It's just where your brain is on any particular day. So that's what's interesting about it. I'd like to see. And like I said, when we did the studio show, so in some cases we'll be sitting there and they'd name the task, and I'll be going, I never did this one. Or Madeline would go, I don't remember this. And I go, no, I never did this. And it turns out we did, but we'd forgotten about it. And while I'm watching the other people, I still don't know what I've done. So I'm thinking to myself in real time, okay, I reckon I probably would have done this. And sometimes I end up doing exactly what I thought. But sometimes, because it's months later, I ended up doing, in my mind, something totally different than I actually did. So it's an interesting little experiment there.
Yeah. And do you drink much milk regularly without straitjacket?
No, I'm actually lactose intolerant, so that made it even more impressive. But they didn't know that. They didn't realize they hadn't spent the next 2 hours on the toilet after that. But it's what you do for TV. You see?
Yeah. It's all about the
what you do for laughs.
Put yourself into the pain. And now Brindley Stint and Angela Dravid both chose the artistic route.
Mm-hmm.
If you had done the artistic route, would you have produced a masterpiece or a flop?
With my feet or my mouth?
With any part of your body that isn't your hands, if you were attempting to draw.
I think it would be a flop, to be honest. I'm not bad with my hands when it comes to drawing. But no, I think it would have been a flop. And that's probably why I didn't choose it.
Yeah. And
I didn't choose it.
Yeah, and I did quite like how Angela put the easel onto her knees to walk around with it. And that was quite ingenious. It's what Brindley missed off with it. And and when you first saw when you first saw Brindley Stint's outfit, what was your initial thought of it? Because I thought it was quite genius.
Yeah, this is the Girl Scout thing. No, I thought it was great, and she looked great in it. I thought, okay, everyone's made quite an effort here. Yeah, I thought it was good. It's practical. It was for getting around the place. It was um, trying to think what Paul was wearing. Oh, sorry, what Guy was wearing.
Guy wore a red
Um,
t-shirt and red
oh
shorts.
yeah, he was pretty and shorts. Yeah, he was pretty simple as well. Um, but everyone else made a bit more of an effort. No, I think she looked great. Yeah.
Yeah, and because I in the UK I do scouts, which was even more impressive because when I saw that she had wore the outfit and had the neckerchief and everything, I thought, wow, that's a genius idea because the neckerchief is, I don't know the initial history about it, or if I'm ever going to mention this right, I'll get corrected later probably. But the neckerchief was made to be multi-use, not just to look decorative. So if you needed a sling, you can use the neckerchief as a
Oh
sling.
yeah. Okay.
And so having it in Taskmaster worked very well.
Having said that, she never used it though, did she?
No, no, she didn't, which
Right.
was quite disappointing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
yeah, and her hat was quite good as well. How she got the TM sewn into it.
Yeah.
There's a
Well,
nice,
she certainly made certain people made more effort than others when
yeah,
it came to clothing and things like that. I'm not pointing fingers at anyone, but they did.
yeah. And then Madeline Sami tied her shoelaces with her teeth, um, and that would be very hard in many ways. One, because it'd be hard to grip with the teeth and do the knots. And it'd be
Yeah.
hard to come up with a knot to do because you can tie your shoelaces in many other knots. Do you reckon you would be good at tying shoelaces with only your teeth?
With practice, perhaps. I think I could have done it. With the knots and stuff, maybe Brindley, being the Girl Scout, would have been better off taking that approach. But look, again, that's probably why I didn't choose it. I think leaning over that far and to do it, I'd probably struggle. My flexibility is not what it used to be. So that's why I probably ended up being on a trolley
Yeah.
upright, straight jacket. I was playing to my physical condition at the time.
Yeah, and now we move on to the live tasks. Now, with the series being 10 episodes, do you think you were better at the pre-film tasks or the live tasks?
Some pre-film tasks I was better at, um, and some live tasks I was better at. What I tended to enjoy most about the live tasks that you got no idea what it's going to happen, and you're all in the same boat at the same time, which is true of the rest of the show. But straight away, you know if you're going to do well or not, and you don't have to cryptically think too much how you're going to do it because it's fairly clear. They tell you exactly what you have to do, and you can either do it or you can't. Whereas in the out in the field tasks, your approach is what it's about. That's what they're interested in it. And sometimes, depending on what day you're in, what mood you're in, um, is how well you're doing that. So no, I probably the studio tasks. I'd say I think I only won one, but I was probably better at those. I would say.
Yeah. And then this task was to spell the longest word only using alphabetic spaghetti. I've said that right.
Mm.
Woohoo! I've said that right. And I didn't know you could make words using alphabetic spaghetti. I thought it was just something that looked like a letter, and it wasn't actually a letter. Do you wish you had done a little bit better on that task?
Yeah. Again, there is an element with the show of are you going for points or are you going for entertainment or do you not really care at that stage? Especially that episode, you'll know where you're at, whether you've lost it already. If you're second to someone, you'd definitely be trying to win that task. But I think I did okay. I was surprised I managed to get a word.
Itself, because it's like it's hard. It's like when you watch Countdown, you have to come up with a word in the certain amount of seconds, and it's hard to come up
Yeah.
with the words itself. But I feel like it's even harder when you have to like it's like you're almost swimming in the liquid before
Yeah.
you actually get to the food. Do you reckon
Oh,
if you
totally.
had 10 minutes, do you reckon you would have made a really, really long word?
Oh, for sure. I think we had 100 seconds. If you had 5 minutes, you could easily get a 7 letter word. Not a problem.
Yeah.
But as a physical part of, is that a W? Is that an M? Or is that, and getting all the source off it and trying to line them up? Because I think all the letters are in there, so you should be able to get a fairly long word. I mean, if you have a word in your head, you should be able to find it eventually.
Uh,
But that's the whole point of Taskmaster. It's you're against the clock.
And so it was a brilliant, brilliant episode, and it was a brilliant series. So the episode winner was Brinley Stint, which was very lucky of her because she got to keep her forks that she had only borrowed, which I'm assuming if she borrowed them and if she told I think it was like a grandma that she had actually brought them on the show and lost them, I reckon she would be back in her grandma's bad books.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's
Well, at
like,
least you got my books as well.
yeah, and it's like a lot of It's like the Danish version and the UK version, I think, are the two ones that always that use rings like wedding rings, and that's a dangerous thing to submit into
Yeah.
the prize pool.
Totally.
Yeah, and it's hard. Now that we've covered the episode, now we're on to some light chit chat because recent news have occurred in the Taskmaster universe, so opinions will be interesting. So the other weekend, Alex Horne was at the British National Comedy Awards and made a statement in the Guardian article saying how he would like international contestants to be in the UK version. And if you got asked, would you say no or would you say yes?
Oh, definitely say yes. Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, because it would be interesting to see New Zealand, UK, and Sweden, Norway join together to make an international series where it's everyone together.
Oh, that'd be brilliant. And it'd be great to meet Alex and get interact with him, for example, on the series. Would be great. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, and so with the show's success and with all the fans, if there was some brand new, if there was a comedian that was watching this who had been asked to come on to series 3, and obviously NDAs, he's not allowed to say anything, what advice would you give him or her?
That's a good question. In other words, what advice would I give myself before I went on if I knew what I knew now? If you're going for points, read the whole question properly right through. There was a couple of occasions, I think it was smashing a vase or something. There was two, and then there was a second part of the question inside the broken vase, which 3 or 4 of us never picked up on. The second part, of course, was put that vase back together. It's and most of us thought, great, to smash the vase. So if I maybe watched a bit more of the show before I went on, I would have picked up on that. So it's a bit like you talk to a kid who does an exam, read the whole question thoroughly, process it before you run off and try and be too clever. And also just enjoy it and have fun. Don't take it too seriously. Obviously, it's a fun comedy show, so enjoy it as much as you can. Trust the editors. Just have fun. It'll sort out. Don't be too self-conscious. They'll make you look good at the end of the day, or it's probably funnier than it felt on the day. Often you're running around for 10 minutes trying to find someone. Obviously, they're not going to use 10 minutes of footage of you trying to find someone. So you just got to keep thinking. It's a TV show. It's not real.
Yeah.
It's not real time.
That's brilliant advice because the vase task has got to be the best one because it's like everyone's dream is just to break things because it's fun to break things, but it's even funnier when you've just not even thought, even realised that there's another task there.
Now, having said that, to be honest with you, deep down, there's a small part of me that is glad I didn't see the second question, because it would have been a real pain in the ass putting that back together. And even if I saw it there and if I knew what the follow up task was, I probably would have pretended I didn't see it, because I think we got enough out of just the smashing it and let the other people put it back together,
And I think seeing the task made it comedy gold. It made it unique to Taskmaster New Zealand, that every version and every series has got its own famous moment. Like Mike Wozniak farting out a hemorrhoid is a huge famous moment because it's unusual, and then you smashing a vase and not realizing there's another task inside it, and then realizing afterwards you're really glad that you didn't notice it, is another really amazing moment. And it's those moments that make it worthwhile, because when you watch YouTube videos of people collaborating the best moments ever, and that's in there, you feel like you've entertained people and you've made it better for yourself.
Well, that's the word, really, entertained, because your main job when you're on there, that's why they're not using just everyday people, I suppose, which they could, because they do a great job. What I mean is your main job is to entertain, get X amount of minutes of good TV from whatever they're asking you to do. It's not really to win it. Arguably the most entertaining thing may end up winning, but that's really secondary to making some entertaining content. And if that, and how you go about that, that's what it's all about. Just entertaining.
Yeah, and the other good thing about the show is that how Alex in himself, one, was happy that other countries were having a go at his show, and that fans can just enjoy it, and he doesn't care how like people like express the love for it. And when you saw that people were making when someone made you fan art from your work, what was that feeling like?
Oh, it's great. Yeah, yes. No, that's it's great. And you're right. You realize how popular the show is on many levels, and and Alex has done a good job of that, but he was very involved with the New Zealand show, as a format. He was very much in touch with the production company, and I think, as you said, they're all unique tasks that were invented here for the New Zealand show. But I'm pretty sure he was running his eye over them, going, "Yeah, that'll work. That might work." Through his experience. So, I think he's very pleased to see other countries do it. But at the same time, being a TV producer, he wants to ensure that it's got as best chances possible of working, because it's his baby. He wants to see it work well. So, the more involved he can be, the better.
Yeah, and in that same Guardian article, it had revealed that David Sundin, who is the Swedish version of Alex, and Paul Williams are in a Taskmaster Assistants group chat together.
All right.
They're a little WhatsApp group chat discussing, "Oh, I've got this beautiful idea for a task. Oh, you'll love to hear this."
Yeah.
They're not doing it because they have to. They're doing that because they want to. They want to have a conversation with Alex and go, "Oh, I've got this idea. I think it'll really work." And Alex goes, "Oh, that's an amazing idea." And it's not like Alex is going to steal the ideas, because he wants to come up with his own unique ideas as well.
But I think they can share ideas and do the same one, as long as the timing of productions, so you don't get to see one on another series before you get to do it. And that's why I think they had unique tasks in New Zealand, as opposed to using UK ones that have already gone to air, because many of us would have seen them and had a preconception of what we would do. So they needed to be unique. But it's all about the tasks, for sure.
And so we come down to the slippery slopes. We come down the lazy river, like a very slow lazy river that I call the end of the interview and the end of the podcast. Now, Ed Gamble is the host of Taskmaster, the podcast. I've stole the concept the format and everything from, and I openly admit that I've stolen it from him because I really don't care. He's probably not going to be watching this. He probably won't come and get me with a pitchfork. Not because he probably lives at the other end of the country. And so, would you be able to rate your experience on Taskmaster World, the podcast, from number 1 to number 5? 5 being the most and 1 being the worst.
I would say 4.5. Oh, sorry, 5 being the worst or 5 being the best?
5 being the best, 1 being the worst.
Oh, yeah. 4.5, getting toward, it's right up there.
Brilliant. Thank you. So, thank you guys for watching. If you're watching this on the YouTubes, and thank you for all the audio listeners. If you've been listening to mine and Leigh voices through your beautiful ears, I am complimenting you now. Yes, it's got to that stage. So remember, guys, to always be careful and always attempt to do your own tasks. I don't know where that was going, but hey, diddly ho. And remember, keep tasking. Tatty bye.
See you later.
Hello everyone, please subscribe to Taskmaster World.